Okay, we're on to page 3 in lesson 9. We're talking about Andrea's portraits. So in this question, Andrea is a street artist in New Orleans. She draws caricatures. That's cartoon-like pictures of people, right? People have their portraits drawn and then they come back later to pick them up from her. The graph below shows the relationship between the number of portraits she's drawn and the amount of time in hours needed to draw the portraits. And they gave us a graph this time. So if they give us a graph, it's actually a little easier, I think, because we don't even have to think about what's X and Y. We can just read it, right? The bottom is always your X and this is always your Y going vertical. So I already know what's my X and Y. Time spent drawing is my X, so that's hours. So I can, over on the table, I can label that. And portraits is my Y. So that made that a little easier, I think. Okay. And we already know it's proportional because look, it's a straight line and it goes through the origin, right? So we do know it's proportional. But what we need to do is, there's a blank table, so we're gonna have to fill that out. So what I'm thinking is I need some points, right? So one point I could read is the origin, right? I could go 0 hours, took 0 portraits, right? And then I'm looking for other things I can read well. And I can't read anything, you know, when it's at 1, I can't read that very well. When it's at 2, oh yeah, I can read that pretty good, right? At 2 hours, it looks like we could write 3 portraits or draw 3 portraits, right? If I go to the 3, I don't know if I know what that number is, but if I go to 4, I can read that one. 4 hours. 6 portraits, right? And we could read more. Well, we could read at least one more, right? I could read this point, right? 6 portraits. I don't have room for it, but just so we have it, or 6 hours is 9 portraits. Okay. So as long as you had 3 out of the 4 points on there, you know, if this is a problem, you would be getting it correct. All right, part A. Write 3 ordered pair from the graph and explain what each coordinate pair means in the context of the graph. All right, well, let's do that. So we actually have 4 of them, right? Our table is basically 4 different ordered pairs. So it says just pick any 3 of them. So I'm actually gonna ignore the 0, 0. I don't think that's very interesting. I'm gonna start with the 2, 3. Right? 2 hours is my X. 3 hours is my Y, so just 2, 3 is the ordered pair. And then what does it mean? Well, the X was time, right? So in 2 hours, she makes 3 portraits. Okay, I talked about what each number meant. I have a context to the question, right? She's drawing portraits over time, right? And then basically every sentence is going to be exactly the same, except I'm just going to use different numbers. If I use another ordered pair, we have 4, 6. And this one's going to be the same, right? In 4 hours, well, what does she do? She makes 6 portraits. Do my sentences have to be exactly the same as mine? No. You could write them a little different. You could say she draws 6 portraits. You could put her name in there, right? You could add a little bit extra if you wanted to, but this gets the point across. And what if I did use 0, 0? Well, in 0 hours, she makes 0 portraits, right? Cool. All right, there's A. Part B. Determine the constant rate of change and explain what that means in the situation. All right, well, rate of change is change in Y over change in X. So let's go back up to our table and do that just like we've done in the last couple questions. Okay, so how do the X's change? Well, from 0 to 2 is a change of 2, 2 to 4 is a change of 2, 4 to 6 is a change of 2. So the X's are changing by 2s. Over in the Y's, I think we can see they're changing by 3s. And then the only other part to do is make sure you get the numbers in the right spot, right? The Y's go on top, the X's go on the bottom. So I'm going to have 3 over 2, right? Then it does say explain what it means. So it would help if I labeled, right? So if I go back up again, the Y's are the number of portraits, the X's are the hours. So that's going to be helpful. So this is 3 portraits in 2 hours, right? But I need a full sentence. So by labeling it, that makes me write the sentence a little easier. And if I wanted to, you could reduce this. 3 divided by 2 is 1.5, right, over 1. You put that in your calculator. So you could use either set of numbers. So if I had to explain this, right, she can make 1.5 portraits in 1 hour. Right. Could I have left it as 3 over 2? Yeah, then it just would have said she can make 3 portraits in 2 hours. Okay. All right, finally, write an equation that represents this situation. Well, remember, it's just y equals your rate of change times your x. So in this case, it's just y equals 1.5 times x. Or again, if you left it as 3 over 2, that'd be fine. Y equals 3 over 2x is also right? You could also go this. Okay. So either would be correct. All right, next page. All right, so now we are talking about, the great sport of badminton, everyone's favorite Olympic sport, right? All right, so this one's an example with no table or graph. It's just a word problem. All right, so let's see what this is, what kind of problems this presents us. So it says, write an equation that will model the proportional relationship given in real world situation. All right, well, if I'm going to do a proportion and write an equation, right, our whole basic idea again is y equals the rate of change times x. I just got to figure out the rate of change, right? So that's our goal. Can we figure out the rate of change and then just sub it in? So the question says, there are 3 cans that store 9 badminton. Consider the number of birdies per can. Right, so just so we're clear, birdies are these things. Okay, and so it says we have 3 cans and it basically contains 9 birdies, right? So we have to write a rate of change for it. So change in y over change in x. But the question is, which one's x and which one's y? Which one's independent? Which one's dependent? And the nice thing about this word problem is they actually give us a really cool, nice, easy way to do this. Because, and again, I'll underline it. It says birdies per can. They're literally telling us, right, birdies is on top. Per means to divide, and then can on the bottom. They spelled it right out for us if you see it. Okay, so then we just sub the numbers in. Well, look, there was 9 birdies, 9 badminton, and there's 3 cans, so I put 3 on the bottom. So my rate of change is just 9 over 3, which reduces down to 3 over 1, right? And I got my information I need, because that's all the information there was. We made a rate of change of it, so our equation should be y equals 3x. Again, if I was looking at that equation, right, the y represents the number of birdies times 3 times the number of cans. Okay. Part 2, or number 2. All right. In 25 minutes, Lee can run 10 laps around the track. Consider the number of laps she can run per minute. Just like the last question. Look at these last 3 words I just said. Run per minute. They literally gave us, right? We don't even have to think about it. They literally gave us the y and the x. So change in y over change in x. The first thing said is our y. So run would go on top. Per is the division, right? And then minutes on the bottom. So with that, let's put the information in 25 minutes. So 25 goes on the bottom. Lee can run 10 laps. So laps per minute. Okay. And there's our rate of change. We could reduce this. We've been talking about trying to reduce it down to a unit rate. So if you did 10 divided by 25 in your calculator, it turns out to be 0.4 laps per 1 minute. Right? So Lee doesn't finish a full lap, not even a half a lap, only 0.4 of a lap in a minute. Okay. And there's our rate of change. So to write out the equation, right, y equals rate of change, times x, we just sub it in. 0.4 times x, and there's our equation, right? So again, this stands for how many laps can she run? Well, it's equal to 0.4 times how many minutes she runs for. All right, last question. Ooh, challenge, very exciting. The difficult one. Okay. So Allison's middle school team has designed t-shirts containing their team name and color. Allison volunteered to call local stores to get an estimate on the total of purchasing t-shirts. Print-O-Rama charges. Let's highlight some important information. That might help, right? Charges a setup fee as well as a fixed amount for each shirt ordered. The total cost is shown below for the given number of shirts. So there's Print-O-Rama, right? The total cost, Value Tees and More charges $8 per shirt. And that's the one that's in the graph. So we have two things that we got to compare. So let's take a look at what's happening. The question is, does either pricing model represent a proportional relationship? So we just got to say, is either one of them proportional? Let's start with the table, right? Well, it's proportional if it's got a constant rate of change, right? Money is always our Y value. Number of shirts then would be the X. And if we see how it changes, it's going by 10, 10, 10, and 10. Over here, it's going by 80, right? If you did 175 minus 95. And if you did this with your calculator, they all turn out to be 80 as well. So I think we can clearly see, right? If we did this down below, change in Y over change in X, we end up with 80 over 10, which reduces to 8 over 1. All right, well, that's cool. It's got a constant rate of change. Does that mean it's a proportion? Not necessarily, right? There's one other thing we got to do. I'll pick a different color for it. We have to see if it goes through the origin. And the origin is 0, 0. So if I extended my table, right, I'm at 10 over here. I need to go back 10. And following the pattern, that would get me to 0, right? And then this side, I got to go back 80 following the pattern. Well, 95 minus 80 is 15, right? So is this at 0, 0? And the answer is no, it's not, right? So this one, Print-O-Rama, is a big problem, right? It doesn't go through 0, 0. All right, let's look at the other one, our graph. And this one's even easier to do. You just got to ask yourself two questions. Is it a straight line? Yes. Does it go through the origin? Yes. So is this one proportional? Yeah, that one's proportional. Way easier to do the graphs, right? So let's answer the question and see what it says. So does either one represent a proportional relationship? Yes. Value T does. Because, you guys should know the sentence by now, right? It's a straight line. And it goes through the origin. Ooh, almost ran out of room. All right. The other one doesn't because, right, it doesn't go through the origin. It doesn't hit 0, 0. It actually hits 0, 15, right? All right, the second part of the question, find the constant rate of change and write an equation for value T and more. All right, well, it's just Y equals the constant rate of change. Hey, I never found the constant rate of change, did I? So I go back, and since I know it's already got a constant rate of change, I'm just going to pick 2 points. So I'm going to pick this one and see how it changes. The X's went from 10 to 20. So the X's changed by 10, right? The Y's changed by 80 to 160. It changed by 80. So this was, so if we did that, right? Change in Y over change in X was 80 over 10, which is really just 8, right? So my formula is Y equals 8X. All right, here's where the challenge question comes in. How much is Print-O-Rama's setup fee? Print-O-Rama, that was the table. The setup fee, it didn't really tell us. It said there was a setup fee up here, right? And there was a fixed amount for each t-shirt. Well, we actually figured out the fixed amount. That was our rate of change. It's $8 a t-shirt. But how much did it cost to set up the machine to print everything off? Well, if we really think about it, if you're setting up the machine, you haven't made any t-shirts yet. If you haven't made any t-shirts yet, we're focused in on when the t-shirts are 0. When the t-shirts are 0, it costs $15, right? So That's our answer. How much is the Print-O-Rama setup fee? It's $15, right? It's what happened when it was 0.15. And finally, which company is a better deal? Well, both companies are $8 a shirt, right? But Print-O-Rama had a $15 setup fee and the other one didn't. So who's the better deal? Value T, right? Because there is no setup fee and both charge same per shirt. Right? They both charge $8 per shirt.
And please have your attention for the afternoon announcements.